You're listening to Parenting Our Future with certified parent coach Robin McMahon, author of The Yelling Cure and founder of Parenting for Connection. My podcast is all about providing you with the tools and solutions you need in your parenting so you can create the family you always wanted. Hey everybody, it's Robin McMahon here. Welcome back to Parenting Our Future. Okay, so I've got a really special guest here who's going to help you with your life, okay? She's going to help you with work-life balance, if that exists. We're going to explore that. We're going to see if that really is a thing. Is it possible? I want to introduce you to Cherylanne Skolnicki. She is an entrepreneur. She has a husband and 3 kiddos, and she knows exactly how it feels to have too much to do and not enough time to do it. It's exhausting, it's stressful, and it can be tempting to give into that chaos, but not Cherylanne. She has figured out a way around that. And she is a sought after speaker and hosts a top-rated Brilliant Balance podcast, which we'll talk about. And her work has also been featured in Thrive Global, The Huffington Post, Forbes, Women's Day, and she appears on TV news shows as an expert on the work-life balance, on productivity and purpose. Cherylanne, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here.
That's great. So great. So, okay, let's just do this. Let's dive right in. Is work-life balance a real thing? What are we talking about today?
Right. Well, I think that is definitely going to go down in history as the number one question I get asked on the street at this point in my life. You know, is this some kind of unicorn we're all chasing?
Yeah.
I think, look, it's an unpopular point of view to say that work-life balance exists, but I fundamentally believe that it does.
Mm-hmm.
What it requires is a bit of a fresh look at what is the definition of that term, right? So if a listener is out there, driving her car thinking, yeah, look, I have my hands full with my kids and my job and my husband and my household, like work-life balance is a joke, right? What she's really saying is, I don't have enough time. I just feel like I can't get the things done that I want to get done, and I don't like how I feel. I feel exhausted, I feel stretched, I feel strained, and this is not how it was supposed to feel. This is not the promise that was made to me when I was in, maybe high school, being told, like, you can have it all. It is the generation of the woman, go after it, get the big career, have the family that you want, and like, it's finally time. We really can have it all. So I think this is where the story got convoluted, right? We somehow heard have it all, and then we went off and tried to do it all. And those two things just aren't the same. So when I am talking with women about work-life balance, what I'm really looking for is a sense of peace with the choices that we're making, where our careers are getting the time and energy that we want to devote to them. Like, I love my career. You probably do too. A lot of our listeners today probably do. Like, I want to put time and energy into my career, and that our families or the people that we love are getting the time and energy that we want to devote to them, and that we still are taking great care of ourselves, right? So that we can like move through our day feeling pulled together, feeling like healthy, feeling not exhausted. That, to me, that's the definition that we're going for. So the flip is that it's not some sort of static like pie chart where we get all the pieces just right and then we don't try to change anything. There's a more dynamic nature to what it really means to be at peace or to feel fulfilled by the choices that we're making.
Yes, I have to say that is a really good perspective on it, to be at peace with the choices that we're making, because as women, you're right. We're told, well, okay, you can have it all. You're kind of expected to also do it all because we've told you can have it all. And so enter, perfectionism, enter shame as well. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like what you're saying about having peace with the decisions that you're making, because if you don't, then you're just going to be anxious. You're going to be worried. You're going to be stressed. Your internal dialogue is not going to be very positive. You're probably beating yourself up a lot. Right.
Sure. Well, and I think that's why, Robin, we have to ask ourselves, like, who's saying we're supposed to do it all?
Yeah.
Because I don't ever think that. Well, and I think that message was never communicated to me directly. Like I never sat in a class or sat down with my mom where somebody said, and Cherylanne, you are going to need to physically, personally do every single blessed thing, right? In your office and at home to keep this life. Like there are some things no one can do for us, right? Nobody's going to go do my workout for me in the morning and like have any kind of impact. Like there's some stuff you have to do on your own, but I think if we stay out of broad brush strokes, right? And we kind of like double click a level and think about within each element of our lives, all the different roles we play. What are the tasks that we need to personally do? And what are the ones we do not need to personally do, right? Maybe they don't need to be done at all, but certainly we don't need to personally do every task that's associated with running a household, being a parent, having a job. Okay, and that's the breakthrough is instead of thinking at this macro level, like, well, if I'm gonna have a job and be a mom and be a wife, forget it, it's game over. But it's like underneath that are 1,000 activities that we can choose to do or not to do that shape how much sleep do we get and how do we really feel at the end of every day.
So then what are you saying? Are you saying to sort of delegate or farm out some of these activities that we don't have to personally do?
It could be one option. Yeah. I mean, I usually say there's kind of 3 ways of getting time back for if the core problem that you're grappling with is, I just don't feel like I have time to get it all done, which is what I hear, right? All the time. I just have too much to do and not enough time to do it. Then the first question is like, well, what am I doing? Where is my actual 24-hour day going?
Mm-hmm.
And how much of that day am I going to allocate to sleep, right? For me, that's 8 hours. So it's like, that's gone. So I have a 16-hour day that I can decide how am I going to slice and dice it. That's it. When those 16 hours are gone, like they're gone, right? So if you and I mapped out how did you spend your 16 hours today and how did I spend mine, they're not going to be the same. Mm-hmm. So we already know like there are choices available to us here about what we do at all, like what makes the cut. Maybe you play the piano and I don't, and you sit down every day and play, and that doesn't make my day ever. Right? That's like an example of the days can be entirely customized to the individual, to what fills us up, what makes us happy, what makes us feel like, our life is on point. Your work tasks will look different than mine, right? You have different children than I do, so that'll look different. So there's like already a framework of there's a lot of customization that can happen here. So some things are just, is anybody going to do these things or not in my life? And then there's, am I going to do it myself? So am I going to have my kids set the table or am I going to set the table? Is my husband going to fold the laundry or am I going to fold the laundry? Right? So it doesn't have to be like I'm hiring someone to do it, but just what's the allocation of work on our home team, like the people who live with us, and then also on the team that we work on at work. And then the third thing would be, is there a way to do this more efficiently? Is my perfectionism getting in the way? Am I over-engineering a solution where something is taking more time out of my day or my week than it really has to? And if I can figure out a way to do this more efficiently, then maybe that's another way I can find a deeper sense of balance. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. So you have to look at what you're doing. What are the tasks that you're doing that fill your day? Then you're saying, am I going to do it myself? So let's look at my home team. Let's look at my work team, right? And then is there a way to do this more efficiently? So, I have to say that, I started doing some different things myself too, like Instacart for Costco. Yeah. As much as I like to, and sometimes for me going shopping is
fun.
Yeah,
sure.
It's fun. Yeah, sure. But then there are those days where it's like, oh gosh, we gotta go to Costco, right? Where it's not like, oh, I get to go, I get to have a break, and I get to eat some samples, and I get to buy a top while I'm also, shopping for getting the roasted chicken, all that stuff, right? So yeah, I really agree with you, and also I think that it's important to look at, do I need to do this? Like, am I doing this because I think I need to? Like, is it okay to bring store-bought cupcakes to the class instead of slaving away making them myself? Like, I proudly bring in the plastic container, that is recyclable, to my son's class because, look, I just can't even. And I'm okay with that.
And I think it's this, there, these decisions are so personal, right? Like
Yes.
one woman's joy is another woman's drudgery. So if somebody out there loves baking cupcakes and that's her superpower and it's super fun and
Yes.
relaxing or something she likes to do with the kids, great. And if you don't, also great, right? But this ability to engineer at that level of detail, that is where the freedom is. It's not in the macro. It's not like, well, I'm not going to be able to work because I can't figure out how to do it all. So I'm just going to lop off a whole limb. It's like, how am I going to engineer within these various elements of my life, right? Whatever ones we choose to have in the mix, at that next level of granularity, that's where freedom lies, has been my experience.
Mm. Well, and I think as women, we also need to recognize that everybody's day is going to look different, and we're not invited to judge or criticize, and for you to do whatever you're choosing to do, not worry about criticism. Look, I'm doing what I'm doing, and you don't know me. You don't know
As
what.
long as you're happy, right? I think
Yeah.
where sometimes it's when we're not happy with
Mm.
our own choices, we start inviting, you know, um, the peanut gallery into our head to have an opinion. It's like, so the reconciliation is, are you delighted with your life? Do you feel balanced? Do you feel rested? As long as you feel great, you have no changes to make. But if you don't, and I think a lot of people listening will say, I don't feel great, I
Mm.
have not engineered this yet, then maybe go get some input, get some ideas on, what are other ways of doing this? What are people doing that you think is required? It turns out it's not,
Mhm.
because great freedom can come from that.
Well, and comparison is the thief of joy, right? And comparing yourself to others is not helping us rise up and find more joy. So let's look at our own lives and figure out what we need to do and change. Now, for those who do find that there is a work-life balance, what are they doing to achieve this?
Yeah. Well, I think it really starts with having an intention
Okay.
around, how do I want to feel in my life? Right. So we all have a different energy, I guess, like a different sort of demeanor, a way that we really want to feel. And I think that's what we're chasing. And that's the only litmus test of, are we getting there? Is like, do I like how this feels? If I like to go, 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 and that feels really good to me, and someone else likes a more languishing pace, right? And they like to be a little more fluid, and that's what feels good to them, we're going to design really differently for what balance looks like, right? I may cram things in more. I may have more of a more hectic pace that just feels natural. And someone else may need to have more breaks, more rest time kind of
Mhm.
throughout their day. So that's baseline one, is like, how do you actually want to feel? Another thing to think about is like, what really are the things that matter to you right now? Okay. We're
Right.
all going to say, oh, my work, my family, my husband, like, okay, I get it. At a high level, that is not, it's not helpful. What's helpful is like, it matters to me to be present during homework in this chapter. It
Right.
matters to me to have, emotional conversations with my teenager right now. Like that's the level of granularity I'm talking about on what are our priorities, at work, at home, in our relationships, that and for our own self-care, so that your time can then get aligned with those things. Because when our time is aligned with the priorities, the things that we really want most, that's when we say we have a sense of balance. So the women who are doing it, who are like, externalizing like a sense of vibrancy, a sense of like, oh yeah, kind of, my life feels pretty good, it's pulled together, that's probably what's going on underneath.
Mm. Oh, that's really good. And what matters right now is what matters right now. It doesn't necessarily matter next month, next year, right? Your kids are growing
Mhm.
and changing, so are you. So things can change, and I think that also can give us hope too, right? That as our kids get older, things can get easier, things change and grow. It's been great as my kids have gotten older. You've got two teenagers yourself and one child who's 10. And, there is some more freedom with when they get a little bit older too, right? So you can get some time back, and what matters, to you will change and grow and morph as your family does. And so that's really important. And like you said, to have an intention about how you want to feel. So how do I want to feel?
Mhm.
And then how does my life show up around me to ensure I feel that way. And if it doesn't, then what do you do? If it doesn't, if you're not feeling the way you intend to feel, what do you do?
Well, I'll tell you what most people do first, which is they do nothing.
Okay,
Like
okay, uh-huh.
sadly, right? Most people are like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I'm so busy. Does not feel good. I have no sense of balance. I feel terrible. And then it's like, I pour another glass of wine and I drink more coffee. And like, that is not going to solve the problem. So I'm constantly saying, like, ladies, we can do better, right? We can do better, but we've got to stop, like, press pause in your life long enough to assess what's not working, right? Why is this irritating? Is it laundry? Laundry is like driving you crazy and you're like, there's just piles of laundry all the time and I can never get out from under laundry. Well, when is the last time you really thought about how your laundry system works?
Mm.
Like how you do laundry, who does the laundry, when they do it, where the laundry baskets are. Like there is a system that runs underneath that could be engineered differently that might give you a totally different outcome, right? It's like a silly example, but I bet there's people
That's not
going, oh
silly.
my God, laundry is my thing, right? Um, I remember that I just got on this kick of like, I want to remember to take the coupons, the big high value coupons that like Kroger sends me to the grocery store with me. And I could not figure out how to get the coupons to the store. But I was like, you know what goes to the store with me every time? My reusable shopping bags, because they live in my car. They live in the back of my car. I was like, new idea. When the coupons arrive, they're going in a Ziploc right where those bags are. Never forgotten them again, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like little irritants that you can re-engineer to say, I don't like how this feels. We've had women go through our programs who say like, my God, I'm spending so much time in the car. I'm driving these kids to school. I'm driving them home from school, turning around, driving them back to practices. And at a big level, they might make a change like, I'm going to put my kids in a different school.
Mm.
They're in a school that requires me to drive 45 minutes each way. Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Like, this is really decimating our family life. That's a big change.
Mm-hmm.
Someone else might say, can I get into a carpool and get relief from that a couple times a week? Could my husband drive some of the time if I'm doing it every day? Like, so there's kind of small, medium, and large solutions to any of
Mm-hmm.
these. But the first step is really like, take stock, get really clear about what's not working, what's a constant source of irritation or frustration or exhaustion, and then ask yourself, like, could I do this differently? What would have to be true for
Mm-hmm.
me to do this differently? And then, test some things until you find stuff that works. So much of this is like experimentation, crowdsourcing ideas, but
Mm-hmm.
there are almost always other ways.
That's a really great idea. And why not open yourself up to say, hey, you know what? I need to figure out how to do laundry better. Like now all I can think about is the basket of towels that are clean and dry in my kitchen that have been sitting there for 2 days that I haven't folded yet. True story.
Yeah.
So thinking maybe I need some help in that area. Yeah, I think that's really great. So really being able to look at yourself in a neutral way, in a non-judgmental way, and just say, hey,
Yes.
look, you know what? The truth is that laundry kicks my butt every week. It kicks my butt, and
Yep.
I just don't know how to get a handle on it. What can I do? Yeah, you know what? I've got a group on social media that I can maybe reach out to, or whatever. Like I know, it may be small to you, but it actually creates a lot of stress for me. So can I get some ideas? I love that. I love
True
that.
story, Robin. It's actually one of like the top 3 stressors for moms. Like I mean, it more difficult than like their job is like, I can't, because it's relentless, right? It just
Yeah, it
feels like a
never ends.
relentless, never end. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I know. Well, I mean, of course I know. I live it too. Yeah, it
You're living it,
never
right?
ends. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, side podcast will be laundry solutions
Laundry.
for busy moms. Every mom is busy. It'll be relevant to every single person.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I want to change gears a little bit because this is all really good. And I think whether you work or you don't work, whether you're at home with your kids, whatever, like, look, there are ways that we can create more space for more joy, to really feel the way we want to feel. And I love that we're talking about this. I love that so much. And so there's this word that comes up a lot that I want to talk about, and that is the definition of success, right? and there is this sort of cultural narrative about what success is, like being a successful mom, being a successful entrepreneur, being a successful business person, woman, man, whatever it is.
Yep.
Can we talk about how maybe that doesn't serve us in today's day and age?
Hmm.
Or does it?
Yeah. Well, I think I'm not sure what your definition of the cultural narrative is. Mine would be that, we were kind of raised on the message that you were going to do it all, in order to get ahead, and you were going to look good doing it. Like, I think that's kind of the picture that gets painted for women
I
is
think of
like,
working that movie Working 9 to 5, that Jane Fonda movie Working 9 to 5. She
yes,
like had it all, right? Anyway, sorry.
yes. Well, we all like, I mean, I grew up, I was born in 75. I grew up through the 80s and 90s. Like that's where my kind of like media influences are. And I think the stories we were shown, I was at a conference one time talking about like Meredith Baxter Burney on Family Ties was like this iconic working woman, or like Murphy Brown. And I think what we saw was, we didn't see the whole picture is the bottom line. Like we saw
Yeah.
kind of almost like what we see on Instagram today. We saw the highlight reel,
Yeah.
crafted into episodes where you just didn't. And if we saw any of the difficulty, it was through the lens of humor. And so that's not necessarily like a teaching mechanism for us to learn how are we supposed to do this. So that narrative of success was like, do all the things, right? Climb the ladder, every ladder somebody puts in front of you. Like, so you want bigger house, better car, better clothes, better whatever, like this kind of bigger and better, and then look good doing it. And that's twofold. That's externally, like be beautiful, be thin, but also like never let them see you sweat, right? Like no vulnerability, armor up, get out there and like make sure that you look like you have yourself together all the time. That's the narrative I think is not working. I think if you ask women who have done those things, do they feel fulfilled? The answer is too often no, right? Too often those women who externally have all the things are saying, this doesn't feel very good. This doesn't feel the way I thought it was going to feel. Okay. So what we've learned through my work with women is there's really 3 different things that they want. And it's pretty simple. It's, I want to make a contribution, whether I'm doing that through a career, my family, my community, some combination of those things. I want my work to matter, and they really want strong connections. Like I want to feel seen and heard and understood, like my relationships matter. And I want to be able to have a sense of control over my choices. I want to be able to curate my life, right? To put things in and take things out in a way that feels exactly right for me and gives me room to breathe. And when you talk to a woman who's done those 3 things, right, where she's making a contribution, she's got strong connections, and she feels a sense of control over choices, that is a woman who feels successful. So it's kind of the new narrative, if you will, that I would love to see us pursuing because it works.
Yeah. You know what? That's so true. And honestly, that's why I left my marketing career to do what I'm doing now, because I needed to have more control over my life, right? I needed to have control over my choices, my schedule, what I did. And just like you said, I wanted to do work that matters, that helps people. I want to contribute. And you're so right about those strong connections, to be seen, heard, to be understood, to be validated. I mean, that is absolutely true. That is so true. I am I'm definitely who you're talking about. So I really resonate with that. Here's the thing though, where I come in is I work with all of these amazing, beautiful, wonderful, successful women, parents, not just moms. I work with a lot of dads too, and moms and dads together, which is fantastic. And they are successful, right? So I'm using air quotes, successful in that, they have a wonderful job and career, they have a good marriage. And when it comes to parenting, that's what's kicking their butt. That's where their struggles are. Because just like where, there is this sort of message, you've got to do it all. Well, that includes having kids. But what we don't know is what comes with having kids is questioning ourselves. We can lose our self-confidence because, we don't get the kids that we want. We get the kids that we need. And that could mean you have a child with special needs and you add that into the mix, right? This whole piece of parenting that we just sort of throw into the mix of things that need to be done in and of itself
Sure.
can create waves that affect your the way you show up at work, that affect the way
Sure.
you show up in your relationships, in your marriage, in your partner, or with your partner. So I mean, that's what I do, and I so relate to that dynamic because I was there too.
Mhm.
I was winning at work. I loved my job. I loved the people. I loved the work, all that stuff. But my family was falling apart. And I actually felt like I got more validation and felt more successful at work than I did at home. And that's when, for me, things had to change, right? So, I mean, that I think is an important piece to talk about, is just that, when you bring kids into the mix, it can really affect things on multi levels.
Oh, I mean, there is no question. I think our data would say the the addition of children is the single biggest inflection point around balance, right? So,
Mhm.
and I always describe it as you lose your overflow capacity. So the other things in your life that you already liked and enjoyed and were giving time and attention to, like, there's no more overflow capacity for those. You've created this huge new gaping, you know, sucking need of like just everything, like physical
A black
parenting
hole of
early
need.
on, and yeah, like emotional, like you said earlier, it gets easier. Like, I don't know. I think that the physical side of things gets easier, but the emotional side ramps up
Mhm.
just as the physical side comes down. And like that the guidance counseling, that we're doing as parents of tweens and teens, to me is like heavy lifting. It's time consuming. And I love it, but it is like, I am allocating time in different ways because that's not planned. That's not like,
Yeah.
oh, well, I'm going to give a bath at this time and I'm going to put them to bed at this time. It's like when it's happening, whenever in the day that is, you're on call. It's like being an ER doc
My
on
teen
call.
has a crisis. I just got to drop what I'm doing and just be there, is
Right.
what you're saying. Yeah. No,
Right.
I
A
get you.
hundred
You're
percent.
right.
So
Yeah.
I think that, like, but there's no question that when we think about work-life balance or how we structure the pieces of our life so that we feel that deep sense of fulfillment, that the children sit at the epicenter of it, and they should, right? So we can't diminish that or chop that off or try to like make that smaller. But again, I'm going to tell us the freedom comes in the granular. No, we are not going to say like we're not doing anything with children, but those same children that require emotional heavy lifting can fold laundry, and they can put it away and they can
Yeah.
clear the table. And so there's a bit of just constantly rearranging
Mhm.
the cards were dealt, right? Like, oh, here's my cards this month or this 6 months or this year. And like, what have they learned how to do that I might have not realized?
Mhm.
And what am I not asking them to do that it's totally realistic? I'm always saying to my kids, like, this isn't my house. You don't live in this is our house. This house is run as systems that all the people who live there have a
Mhm.
role to play in,
Mhm.
creating the work and doing the work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but I think a lot of us get into that headspace of, well, it's my responsibility. They're so busy. They have homework, they have activities, and then we're just creating an even bigger burden. I promise you, our grandmothers were not doing everything. Like, those kids were definitely doing dishes and, like doing tasks around the house. So we probably
Yeah.
could lean into that.
I was too. I was making dinner. You and I were born the same year. So
Oh,
yeah, definitely making dinner, doing all the things.
cleaning the house. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think there's a bit of that slippage that we need to be careful about in this generation of parents, where we feel compelled in many cases to do everything for them. And I think we're robbing them of the chance to learn how households run and what it takes, because they're going to have to go engineer that, as they become adults.
Yeah, I think they all affect each other. Like, I think that sometimes we just don't ask for the help because we haven't taken the time to explain it to them, to teach them, to show them, and it's just easier if I just do it. You know,
Right. The first time.
Yeah, the first time, but that creates overwhelm, right? And
Right.
so you do have to invest some time in working with your kids and, showing them and all that stuff, but it pays dividends, right?
Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and you do have to invest time in what is the standard that we're trying to reach here? How do I train you just like you would with an employee? How do I train you in how to do it? But once they understand the standard and they know how to do it, it's like you again, freedom on the other side of that.
Yeah, yeah. So what are some like just really simple things that women can do every day just to really help them feel better, feel and by better, feel more, I guess more balanced, more joyful, more in control. I think a lot of people feel out of control.
Yes. Well, this is such important territory. So, but I'll give you a couple of things, but I also think like, let's just talk about what it means to feel in control. That
Yeah.
the notion of, if you think about victim mentality versus a sense of agency, personal agency over your life, the happiest people are people who feel a sense of control over their life and their outcomes. And the truth is, we all actually have it. Like, we all actually have a lot of control over how we spend our time, but we have stories that we tell
Mhm.
ourselves that make it feel like we don't. Okay. So I think you have to start there. And you very naturally did. It's like we want to feel a sense of control, but maybe it's just remembering that we have it and
Mm.
then exercising that control in a way that gets us the outcome we want. So for most people, if they want to feel better, the first thing I talk about is sleep. It's just inescapable. I regularly will survey women like we do an energy challenge, and I'll say, how much sleep are we getting? And it's like 5 to 6 hours is kind of the norm that you hear from most people. So if you listen to your listeners out there and we could hear them back, that's what you're going to hear.
Mm.
So if you're beating that, great, right? Our goal is 7 to 8. And some people will even try to tell you, like, oh, I just don't need a lot of sleep. I only need 5. I'm great on 5. And I'm usually like, if you're great on 5, get 8 and let's see what you can do. Like, you're going to be amazed at what you're, because everything functions better.
Yeah.
Our willpower is higher, our motivation is higher, our decision making is faster, our focus is more clear. So that requires that you take, you kind of trim some fat out of the day to be able to give those hours to sleep. But if you can regularly devote 7 to 8 hours to sleep, you're going to feel better, period. Like, full stop, even if you did nothing else I said. And then, we talk in Brilliant Balance about what we call power practices or foundational balance practices. These are like, what is unique to you? Like, Robin, what is something that you know when you do it regularly, when you protect time and energy, that you're just a better Robin
Hmm.
besides sleep? Because we already
I,
talked
I
about
I
that.
would say, yeah, I would say getting out and going for walks with my
Going
dog
for walks.
and my husband. Yeah,
So you're like, when I do that, everything kind of works better in my life, right? And is that something that you do every day?
I try to.
Okay. So that's a great example of like, lock it in, call it a foundational balance
Yeah.
practice, honor it unapologetically, do it every single day. If the truth is you're like, well, I do it 3 days a week, then it's like, can you get it up to where you're doing it 5, 6, or 7? Because the more often you do something that's that core to making you feel good. I get answers to this question, anything from prayer time, devotionals, time by myself, time with a friend, time outside. I love to swim. I love to play the piano. I love to go spinning, whatever it is. Like, they're very unique to the individual. But if we're honest with ourselves, we can usually identify, like, this is something that when I do it regularly, ideally every day, right, I'm a better me. So those practices kind of form the foundation for us to do anything else well. And that really is why we start there. And you start with the physical, because your physical energy
Mhm.
dictates everything else. And then you go to the mental and the emotional arenas. And there are typically practices that help there as well, or cross pollinate. And that's where it all starts. That's how we start to feel better. It's exercising those choices.
Yeah, and really taking care of yourself is also number one for managing your anger, your frustration, and your stress, especially with your family, right?
Sure.
When you have a longer wick to the stick of dynamite that, we can be some days, it really does help. So I'm with you 100%. I mean, I advocate for us not feeling guilty about having, going for a walk or going to the gym or having prayer time, meditating, lying down and having a nap. I mean, if I'm really being honest, that's what I love to do. I love to have a nap. You know
See?
what?
And so
Like,
that's a practice for you. And it's
yeah.
either because you're shortchanging sleep at night or because you just require like a reboot, right? Which is great
Yes.
to know about yourself.
That's it. Yeah, that's totally it. And where I can, I do. And
That's
it's great.
awesome.
Yeah, it's just a little reboot, and I enjoy it. So, and I do it now. I do it more unapologetically because my kids are older. And I guess that's what I mean by it being easier when they're older, is that there is a little bit more time for me to get stuff back. And especially with COVID right now, there's no activities, so there is a little bit more time, which I definitely appreciate. So I think that is really, really important. And thank you for sharing that. I mean, so sleep, you start with the physical, and then mental and emotional, mindset is so important, right? Mindset is really important. Do you have any quick suggestions before we end here on how to get your mindset into a good place?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we talk a lot about mindset on my podcast and in our programs. I think the reason is it's like an energy valve, right? If you're doing all the physical stuff well, but you have a really strong inner critic, or the stories you're telling yourself are defeating stories, then it's like opening up a valve and just letting all that energy you've created drain right out your toes, right?
Sure.
The same way that if you have a broken relationship that you're stressing you out, like that's just an energy drain. So the mindset work is so critical because it's what allows us to move fluidly through the day, right? Where we feel good as we're going on about doing what we do. Probably the biggest one in my audience, and I suspect it will resonate here with parents, is kind of doing it all versus doing it well is a mindset pattern that we talk about. So many of us were taught to do it all, right? And we actually think we're going to do both, like do it all and do it perfectly. But that notion
Look
of
good
like,
doing it.
right, of knowing like where is it enough? Like, how do we define enough and say, I'm going to do fewer things. I'm going to do them well because I really enjoy them. And I'm going to do them with like a smile on my face, right? I get to do these things, not I'm in some sort of drudgery, endurance battle with myself on how many things can I pack in, never feeling good about how well they're getting done and never feeling like I have any breathing room to like appreciate them, in between. So that curation, that ability to make choices and say, I'm going to do fewer things, but I'm going to do them with excellence, and I'm going to do them with joy. Like, I'm really going to enjoy those things that I'm doing. For me, like, I love to cook. So making dinner for my family every night is like a moment of pleasure, and sitting them down around that table and having a conversation is the only time all day, typically, that we are all doing the exact same thing at the exact same time. And it's sacred to me, but it's not sacred to everybody, right? Some people hate to cook. And so that should not be something that they're trying to cram into their
Yeah.
day when there's so many other options available for how to feed your family, right?
Mhm.
But if I had $1 for every woman who was like, oh, I just have to get better at meal planning and cooking, and I've got to be, I'm like, actually, you don't. Like, we live in 2020. There are a million options for how you can put food on the table that don't require you doing something every day that drains you, right?
Mhm.
Do the stuff that makes you happy. That's like, does that make sense? Like, yes, you have to feed
Totally.
your kids, but
Mhm.
you probably don't have to like plan out some big elaborate meal structure to do it.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. And in fact, I think even just that example creates a lot of stress and shame for a lot of women who think that there has to be this meal and the family all has to sit around the table together. And sometimes that is hell on earth for some families because they
That's right.
just can't all sit together. And I talk about this really openly too. And I say, you know what, look, it doesn't work for us to sit at our table during meal times. we used to, we have a dynamic in our family that is unique to us where it doesn't work for us. We all sit together on the island instead, right? Or sometimes our kids will eat at a different time than us, but that's not the only moment of connection that we have throughout the day. So I
That's
don't
right.
have to put it all in that one place. And it doesn't mean that my family is less than or yours is less than. We don't play games because we can't. I have a child with OCD. So there's a lot of things that are just too hard. Like he
Yep.
cannot play a game without needing to win. And it's like, nope, we're not going to do that. It sucks. It's not fun. I'm sad that we don't do it, but I'd rather not do it and have a better relationship. It's,
Oh, yeah,
yeah. And
totally.
if I was to just run my agenda and say, nope, we have to sit together as a family, we have to play games together in this sort of traditional way, I would drive everybody crazy and they would be
Everyone would be
unhappy.
miserable.
Everybody
Right.
would be miserable. And I don't
Right.
need to do that. It's okay. You can create the family that you want based on what works for you. No judgment,
Yeah.
no shame. Do what works for you.
Yeah, it comes back to the point we were making earlier of how do you really want to feel, right?
Yeah.
If you want to feel connected and peaceful with your family, then a game is not going to deliver it. And so, but it's chasing that feeling of connected and peaceful and then optimizing what am I going to do to get that feeling, to elicit that feeling for the people who are in my household. And
Yeah.
someone else listening, their family may need an entirely different set of activities to create that same feeling. So that's why there's no like cookie cutter, do it
Yeah.
this way approach that's going to make any sense.
Yeah, exactly. And just like you said, you know what? For some families, playing a family game is exactly what they need for connection.
Right.
For us, not
Right.
so much. And that's okay. And I love that we're sort of ending right where we started with how do you want to feel and then go after that. So I think this is really great. And you have, so for people to find you, Cherylanne, it's brilliant-balance.com. That's your website. But
Yeah.
you have a fantastic podcast that you speak to some really great guests. You have some really good information yourself. So it's Brilliant Balance Podcast. Pretty simple, Brilliant Balance Podcast. So
Easy peasy.
you've been doing it for quite some time, longer than I have, 3 years, you said. And so you've got a lot of content then on with your podcast. So, I want to thank you for giving us the permission to sort of take what we have been, the status, the sort of the norms that we think that we have to work towards and just say, no, you know what do you want to feel? How do you want your life to be? Because that's all that matters, right? Not the peanut gallery.
That's right.
That's right.
Yes. Kick them out.
Yes, they do not belong. Well, I just want to thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing all of this really valuable information. And I hope that that our listeners will check out Brilliant Balance.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this edition of my podcast, Parenting Our Future. I'm parent coach Robin McMahon, and if you're enjoying this podcast, please share it with someone who you think might also need to hear this message. And don't forget to subscribe, and if you like my work, I would be grateful if you gave me a 5-star rating. For those of you who like my content and want more, visit me at yellingcurebook.com to get your copy of my book and to find other resources to help you. Until next time, I am wishing you and your family peace and connection.